It's day 3 in the Big Brother house, and there is a lot to talk about today because not only have we solidified nominations for this week, but we have also got our first 2 people up for eviction this Friday, which is super exciting. So join me as I talk through all of the ups and the downs of the latest Big Brother episode, because believe me, there are a lot of them. So I've decided to go with all of the interesting stuff at the start, purely because I want to talk about what is potentially one of the biggest rule breaks in Big Brother history. And I genuinely couldn't believe that they got away with it without any kind of warning, any kind of rule break. There was literally no mention of what was happening, because I was sitting there and I was like, surely this is completely against the rules. But apparently Big Brother doesn't care about rules this series, so therefore they're allowed to talk about nominations. They basically decided, this being the 4 new people, to interview each of the housemates and basically say, hey, by the way, we are going to be holding interviews to ask you who you want to stay and who you want to go. And I was sitting there going, hang on a minute, hang on. This is basically discussing nominations. This is discussing who they would put up for nomination if they were to be sat in that diary room chair. And I just thought, hang on a minute, this is completely wrong. You can't be doing this. You can't be doing this. But it was very interesting, I have to say, because we actually got a lot of juicy information. Now I'm going to read it off my bit of paper. So Marcus said he would want to keep Tate, but get rid of Cameron. OG Cameron, that is, Farmer Cameron. Jenny wanted to keep Farmer Cameron, but wanted to get rid of Tasia. Tasia wanted to get rid of Jenny or Farmer Cameron. Tate wanted to keep Farmer Cameron. Caroline wanted to get rid of Farmer Cameron. Elsa wanted to get rid of Jenny. Ganny wanted to keep Caroline but get rid of Elsa. Zella wanted to get rid of... Oh, it's Zila, isn't it? Zila. My bad. Zila wanted to get rid of Elsa. Sam wanted to get rid of Cameron. Nancy wanted to get rid of Cameron. This is both Farmer Camerons, by the way. And Cameron wanted to get rid of Nancy or Ganny. So, by the end of that, they came to the conclusion that the decision was between Elsa and Ganny. So the whole thing was completely pointless, because Farmer Cameron got the most votes to go, but also the most votes to stay, I guess, from people as well. But equally, I was sat there and I was like, where did Ganny's name come from? Because the only person I heard that mentioned him was Farmer Cameron right at the end. And as for Elsa, got a couple of mentions, but like nothing crazy, do you know what I mean? So even so, I was like, what is going on? Where did you come up with this conclusion that it's between Elsa and Ganny? And then both of them, or like all 4 of them in the room, were basically talking about how they find them to be the fakest among the household. And there's an element that I agree with that, but I don't know how much I agree. And it was only when it was pointed out to me about Ganny that I was like, actually, why are you going into the diary room and crying and no tears are coming out and you're acting like you're really upset by the fact you had to talk about who you would get rid of? And then interesting things come out about the fact that he is trying to be an actor, and that caused a little bit of a stir on Twitter, I must say. But me personally, I am also trying to be an actor, but I would still go on the show and act myself. So I don't know how much is this Ganny putting on an act. Personally, me, I'd be more than happy to tell you who I want to go home. I'm more than happy. Obviously, it's against the rules, but like, I would have no problem nominating. That's not me acting. That's just me, because I know how to play the game. I don't care whether I like these people or not. I want to win the show. I want to nominate people. I want to get them out. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to be like, oh God, it's so hard. I like everybody. No, there's definitely someone in there that you don't like. And so that's why I was a little bit hesitant with Ganny, because I was a little bit like, are you being genuine right now? Is all of this performative dancing for the cameras, or is it just the entertainment of your other housemates? Because if it's for the entertainment of your other housemates, then I can understand that, because that's the kind of bullshit that I would do. But if you're performing for the cameras, that's when it starts to become a little bit of a problem. So the second evil eye did end up going to Ganny, and I have to say, I'm not surprised. So that means that Zila and Ganny are our 2 people up for eviction, which for a week 1 vote is absolutely horrendous, I have to be honest. There were some people in the house that I would have rather gotten rid of, like Tate, who is boring. I'm sorry. Nancy, bless her, also quite boring. There's no one else that's bringing interest to the house, like, more less than those two. Do you know what I mean? So having Gani and Zila up on the block together is a kind of lose-lose vote. Whoever we're losing an icon. Do you know what I mean? So I'm a little bit disappointed. But Gani took it particularly well, and there was a moment where Feishola had a little bit of like a mini breakdown. She had to leave the room, compose herself, come back before she gave her reasons. But on the whole, yeah, I don't know, the whole thing just felt a little bit booky to me. It didn't feel massively genuine from Feishola. I was a little bit like, it was a weird reaction, I can't lie. Like, you didn't have this reaction yesterday when talking to Zila, so why would you have this reaction today? I was a little bit concerned about that. But either way, those two are up for eviction now. It's sad. It is what it is. There's not really much we can do now apart from try and save one of them. I've put my 5 votes on to Zila because I feel like he has got so much more of an impact to make on this show than Gani does potentially. But like I said, either way, we're losing an icon. So, an interesting thing happened after this whole thing spiraled out of control and whatever. Richard took Caroline into the garden and was basically like, oh, I really tried to fight for Gani to stay. I lost that battle. And from what I saw, he was definitely in camp, let's vote Elsa out. Whereas I think Feishola and George wanted Gani gone. I might have gotten that a little bit wrong. I think it might have been Cameron B and George that wanted Gani gone. But anyway, it is what it is. Either way, Elsa was his pick to go, and I think that's what he was fighting for. And he was like, oh, I tried, but like there's someone in there that's controlling. And I was like, it's definitely going to be talking about George, isn't it? 100%. And then I thought, you saying this to Caroline isn't exactly going to be the best for you, purely because she also is friendly with George. And what is she going to do? She went to talk to George later and went, hey, Richard said XYZ. Did that happen? And George went, no, that didn't happen at all. So now I'm a little bit confused. Did it happen? Is Richard trying to play a game? Is he trying to drop other people in the water? Or is George just blatantly lying and making Richard look like a bad guy? Even though I'm fairly certain that he had a conversation with her about how, doesn't the guy seem just like a little bit too nice? Do you know what I mean? I definitely think that there's something booky going on with George. He seems to be a big game player, even though he's saying that he's not a big game player. But equally, I don't mind people who are actively playing a game and are honest about playing a game. If you're in the house and you're playing a game and you're saying to the cameras, I'm playing a game with these people, okay? I'm doing XYZ. We then know what your intentions are. But if we don't know what your intentions are and it looks like you're game playing, that's when people have the issue. Or at least that's when I have the issue. If you're going to gameplay, be honest about it, be vocal, and make sure we know your game plan. Do you know what I mean? Don't just go in there and act and don't not tell anyone. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, that is what it is. The whole thing between Richard and George could blow up at some point if this does get out. But for now, I don't think like it will. So yeah. Speaking of George, there were 2 conversations today where I feel like people basically had to sit him down and just argue against the absolute drivel that he's been hearing on the news and on TikTok and in Twitter spheres and things like that. The first one was with Sam and with George, obviously, and they were discussing trans identities, gender dysphoria, kids and things like that. And George was like, well, you know, I disagree with the fact that kids are having surgeries and then they live to regret it later on in life. And Sam was like, no, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. What actually happens is they're not allowed to have those surgeries until they're 18, until they are of sound mind. And they still have to go through a lot of counselling to decide, do they actually want to do that? What actually happens for kids under the age of 18 is that they can be put on puberty blockers or whatever they're called. I don't know exactly what they're called, but it essentially just pauses their puberty so they can decide, do I want to do this? Do I want to go through this? Because sometimes once you go through puberty, that can be it, and it's very hard to reverse that. Does that make sense? So effectively, Sam was giving an incredible explanation of how it works. They still have to go through a lot of counselling. It's not available in a lot of areas, and it's for a very, very small minority. So the fact that they are always like, oh, they're just chopping the kids' genitals off, it's ridiculous. That's not what's happening. And it's completely misinformation. And it just shows that George is a completely ignorant person and doesn't bother fact checking anything. He just believes the poison that is dripped in his ear. And then that was backed up by the fact that we come to later on when we're going to talk about Caroline's contribution to this conversation in a little bit. But the conversation about refugees and about putting Britain first and the flags and things like that was brought up. And this discussion is something that's so topical right now. And I feel like Tasia did a fantastic job of explaining her point of view and getting her point of view across. We see a lot in today's society that if you're not of a certain this, a certain that, then you're considered other, when that's not what we should be doing as a society. The flag is meant to unite us, but currently it's being used to divide us. And that's what Tasia was saying. And I completely agreed with her. George is just spouting off all of the stuff that he reads on the news, all of the rubbish, all of the misinformation that is touted out and never checked, because that's the kind of age that we live in. And it's important for somebody who is 18 years old, may I add, to be the one to be like, hey, actually, that's not correct. That's not right. Oh, no, that's incorrect. It's just fascinating to watch those kind of conversations happen on TV, on such a platform, and have somebody who is so educated on this be able to be like, hey, no, these are the facts. This is what happens. This is the lived experience of people who are going through that, not just people who are reading the news and informing their decision on based on other people who have nothing to do with these people. So, cheeky little flirtmance might be starting, you know. Cheeky little romance might be budding within the house. I'm very excited. Elsa and Marcus were getting a little bit flirty at the start of the episode, and then I noticed a couple of times throughout the episode that they were a little bit close, and then the episode ended with them jumping into bed with each other. Not literally, but just getting in bed and just fooling around under the covers in a purely platonic way, question mark. I don't know what's going on there. We'll have to wait and see whether this is a real thing or whether it's just like a cheeky night 3 romance that's occurring and it'll fizzle out. But either way, interesting. The Big Brother house does weird things to people, and the fact that this is one of them, I did not think that Marcus would actually have any success with his whole flirting. The way he came into the house, he was like, yeah, I'm a flirt, I'm gonna flirt with Big Brother. I was like, he's gonna be like Marcello last series, where he got absolutely nowhere with that attitude. But you know what? The fact that he's able to pull Elsa, I'll give Marcus his flowers. He might actually be more skilled than I gave him credit for. Another absolutely fantastic story and discussion that we had on the episode was Elsa and Tasia talking about their family dynamics. As far as I'm aware from the conversation, Elsa said that she was adopted as a child, and she always finds the stigma of like, oh, but don't you want to find your real parents, very sort of wrong, and like just it doesn't work with her. She doesn't like it, things like that. And I have to be honest, I do agree with her. I feel like a lot of times people are quite insensitive with the whole, don't you want to find your real mother? Well, no, because my real mother is the one that raised me. Okay, that is all that she is my real mother. Whoever birthed me, that is separate. Okay, she can be a mother, but my mother is not the person that birthed me, but the person who cared for me, tucked me in, took my temperature when I was ill, etc, etc. And I found that conversation to be so sort of, oh, okay. Elsa, I wrote in my notes, is such an incredibly boring individual when she talks, but she's got such interesting stories that I can't help but listen and find intrigue in what she has to say. And then Tasia was talking about how her family, I think her dad left when she was very young or before she was born or something along those lines. And then her mum got with her stepdad and then they split up, but she still considers her stepdad to be her real dad because he raised her. He still wants to be part of her life, and her mum hasn't stopped that from happening. Her stepdad's like whole family is her family, basically. And she said a quote, and it was something along the lines of like, it's like I've got a bonus family. And I just thought that was such a wonderful way of describing it. It's so interesting to hear about people's different family dynamics, because every family is unique, every family is different, and it's nice to hear those stories about when things are going well and when things are positive and happy like this, because it very easily could have been a very bitter split. The dad never saw the kids again, like Tasia and that, but equally it has worked out for the best, and Tasia is living her best life, and she's actually my favourite at the moment. Genuinely, this episode did a lot for Tasia, and I now really, really like her. So the last thing I want to talk about is a retraction of a statement from an earlier episode. I said Caroline is an iconic individual, and then she revealed that she's like besties with Nigel Farage, and I was just like, oh god, oh my goodness. Oh, okay, right, okay. Now, I would like to just put an emphasis on the fact that when asked, do you agree with his politics, she said nothing. She decided to leave the conversation. So we do not know what that is. We do not know what her stance is. But what she did say is that on a personal level, she does like Nigel Farage, which, yeah. It's like saying you like Donald Trump, isn't it? It's like, it's just kind of crazy at this point. It's so weird how many similarities the two have, but how British people can be like, oh yeah, Trump sucks, but be like, oh yeah, Nigel Farage, he's one of the lads. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that one. Yeah. Caroline, I fear that this one thing could really put a dampener on any chances of her making it to the final, or it could guarantee her a ticket to the final from the Facebook mums. So I really don't know what to think for the best here. I don't know how to feel about her anymore. My stan list, or my tier pick, or whatever it was called, my draft pick, is not looking particularly good at the moment. I'm not particularly happy with it at the moment. So yeah, you know what? It is what it is. But anyway, that is it for the episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed a slightly shorter one today, but that's because I am going on holiday. So I will try and upload a video next Tuesday, hopefully detailing both Thursday and Friday with the eviction, and then Sunday and Monday with the another episode, although that one might come out on Wednesday. I might have to do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week, and I might just deal with the backlog then. But anyway, thank you guys very, very much for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Do all that YouTube stuff that you guys do so unbelievably well, and I will see you guys in the next episode, whenever that may be. But until then, make sure to keep on ranting, and I'll see you guys later. Bye now! See ya.